way.
Okay, we're on, is it chapter 14 or 15?
15.
Chapter 15.
And she's going to read it without looking at the book. She's got it memorized.
I can't remember.
Maybe not.
Okay, 14,
15.
15.
The allotment for the tribe of Judah, clan by clan, extended down to the territory of Edom, to the desert of Zin in the extreme south. Their southern boundary started from the bay at the southern end of the Salt Sea, crossed south of Scorpion Pass, continued on to Zin, and went over to the south of Kadesh Barnea. Then it ran past Hezron up to Adar and curved around to Karka. It then passed along to Asmon and joined the Wadi of Egypt, ending at the sea. This is their southern boundary. The eastern boundary is the Salt Sea as far as the mouth of the Jordan. The northern boundary started from the bay of the sea at the mouth of the Jordan, went up to Beth Hogla, and continued north of Beth Arabah to the stone of Bohan, son of Reuben. The boundary then went up to Debir from the valley of Achor and turned north to Gilgal, which faces the pass of Adumim south of the gorge. It continued along to the waters of En Shemesh and came out at En Rogel. Then it ran up the valley of Ben Hinnom along the southern slope of the Jebusite city that is Jerusalem. From there it climbed to the top of the hill west of the Hinnom Valley at the northern end of the valley of Rephaim. From the hilltop, the boundary headed north toward the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, came out at the towns of Mount Ephron, and went down toward Baalah, that is Kiriath Jearim. Then it curved westward from Baalah to Mount Seir, ran along the northern slope of Mount Jearim, that is Kesalon, continued down to Beth Shemesh, and crossed to Timnah. It went to the northern slope of Ekron, turned toward Shikharon, passed along to Mount Baalah, and reached Jabneel. The boundary ended at the sea. The western boundary is the coastline of the Great Sea. These are the boundaries around the people of Judah by their clans.
Okay, let's pause there for just a minute. Can you imagine the county clerk trying to report that, you
I
know?
want a map. I want somebody
I do
drawing
too.
it as we.
I'll see if I can find a map that kind of blocks those out and print it off. But it really is.
So specific.
Does your map cover that?
I don't, I'll let you look and you can tell me.
Okay. It's it's not a straight border.
Thank you.
And this is Judah, which is the south part. Is that what it's?
So the surveyor actually plotted those out in recent times, so
Someone has, I'm sure.
So those tribes are gone. But it does. I'm not sure the map makes it even clearer.
Oh,
Well, yeah, this does help a little bit. Look at this one, and we'll pass that around. It doesn't have, see, this is defined by tribes. And, defining by tribes was as difficult then as it has been for us in determining were the Indian tribes,
You just
because
Here, this is the Salt Sea.
they would conquer one another, and their tribe didn't have a specific border. I mean, we have in our property, we have pins, literally a little metal pin that a surveyor can come out and get the pin and tell what exactly is your property and what's your neighbor's property. And they didn't have anything like this back then.
They didn't have GPS or anything. did they?
No, no, no.
imagine.
And
Why not?
you know, they may stack up some rocks, but rocks are easy to move.
Yeah.
So,
Didn't we read that in the last chapter that they did rocks, you know?
to try to determine a boundary.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, things along the edge, sometimes that boundary,
It's a little fuzzy.
you know, gets kind of fuzzy. I had a home I owned back in Michigan, in Linden, which was an old town. And, you know, we were trying to, in the block I was in, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 houses in the block. These were all old houses. And we were trying, you know, I was debating whether I wanted to put up a fence. There was no need for a fence, but I thought, well, you know, I've got a dog and I kind of keep. So I went down to the county clerk's office and said, you know, I need to get my property boundary. And she looked at me and she said, oh, really? She said, we would prefer you not. She said, the problem is, if we start at one end of the block and we measured out the width of the first house and the second house and the third house, there wouldn't be any land for the fourth house. You know, it would be, you know. She said, you know, unless there's a reason. I said, well, I just want to keep my dog fenced in. She said, talk to your neighbors. See if they got a problem if your dog kind of roams. And I said, well, she doesn't roam that much. And they said, that's fine. Let's not make a problem where none exists. So, you know, that same thing would be true in you know, any old village out here. I mean, those borders, you don't want to force them. And so that's what we have here with Joshua establishing the setup for his new territory.
That's kind of like the house I lived in next door to the church. They put in the parking lot, and then they was deciding where the property line was. Well, it turns out there's about this much space between my fence and the parking lot. Well, they was trying to figure out what to do with that little piece of property along there. And it turned out it belonged to me, so I didn't do anything to it. But they couldn't believe, I said, the parking lot is right on the property line.
Yeah.
Because my fence was, and they got it out and they checked everything and all, and when they got done, that's just the way it was.
Yeah. Well, my house now, my neighbor was going to put up a new fence, and her son-in-law said, we really need to make sure where we're putting the fence. So they had a surveyor come in, and the fence that was there in the front, our front yard, we were over in kind of in their property, and in the backyard, our neighbor, who was next to that lady, they had poured concrete and put the fence on top of it. And they, you know, so we just decided we'll just go with what we think is the property. Because, you know, you just can't end up trying to undo stuff like that.
That sounds like something you'd have Judge Judy figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was damned if I was gonna go in and break up that concrete that they
Oh,
poured. I figured, that's in my backyard, it's behind the shed. Who cares?
Thank you.
So, all right, let's find out what Joshua is giving Caleb.
In accordance with the Lord's command to him, Joshua gave to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, a portion in Judah, Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the forefather of Anak. From Hebron, Caleb drove out the three Anakites, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, descendants of Anak. From there he marched against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kiriath Sepher. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Aksah in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sepher. Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Aksah to him in marriage. One day she came to Othniel. She urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, What can I do for you? She replied, Do me a special favor. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me also springs of water. So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Judah, clan by clan. The southernmost towns of the tribe of Judah in the Negev toward the boundary of Edom were Kabzeel, Edar, Jagur, Kina, Damana, Adad, Kedesh, Hazor, Ithnan, Ziph, Telem, Bealoth, Hazor, Hadattah, Kiriath Hezron, that is Hazor, Ammon, Shema, Moladah, Hazar, Gadah, Hirshmon, Beth Pelet, Hazar Shual, Beersheba, Biziothia, Bela, Ezem, Eltolad, Kesel, Hormah, Ziklag, Madmenah, Sansana, Lebaoth, Shilhim, Ha'in, and Rimmon, a total of 29 towns and their villages. In the
We have a test on this next week.
Yeah. I'm wondering, do we want to keep reading a list of names?
No.
I'd say that through 47, it's just towns and villages.
It's not gonna stick with me.
No.
Yeah.
And then 48 talks about in the hill country.
Oh.
And in the desert.
Yeah.
It's
And
nice, but I'm more impressed with her reading it than.
yeah. And then the wilderness.
Yeah.
It's just,
And all those names are in there.
the people of Judah couldn't get rid of the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem. The
That's
Jebusites stayed put, living alongside the people of Judah.
That's interesting.
They are still living there in Jerusalem. So, what they're saying is they settle in Jerusalem with other people there. They live there with the Presbyterians or whatever,
This, after verse 63, I have a footnote that says, in several key places and in Judges 1, the Bible indicates that pockets of Canaanites remained in the land. The Israelites could not dislodge them or did not drive them out. The unconquered tribes became thorns in Israel's side.
but the Canaanites have been there a long time. Back in Abraham's time, they were living there.
Barbara's probably been practicing that reading for all week since last week.
Yeah.
You should thank my
You
first
do
grade
well.
teacher. She was this, like, in the state of Kansas, she was this major phonics person.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that must be where it came from.
Yay.
You do well.
Thanks.
Well, let's move on to 16.
14,
Yeah.
15, 16, okay.
No more names there, huh?
Well, we may buzz through that real quick.
The allotment for Joseph began at the Jordan of Jericho, east of the waters of Jericho, and went up from there through the desert into the hill country of Bethel. It went on from Bethel, that is, Luz, crossed over to the territory of the Archites in Ataroth, descended westward to the territory of the Japhletites as far as the region of Lower Beth Horon, and on to Gezer, ending at the sea. So Manasseh and Ephraim, the descendants of Joseph, received their inheritance. This was the territory of Ephraim, clan by clan. The boundary of the boundary of their inheritance went from Adaroth Adar in the east to Upper Beth Horon and continued to the sea. From Mikmethath on the north, it curved eastward to Taanoth, Shiloh, passing by it to Janaoth on the east. Then it went down to Janaoth, to Adaroth and Mearah, touched Jericho, and came out at the Jordan. From Tapua, the border went west to Canal Ravine and ended at the sea. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the Ephraimites, clan by clan. It also included all the towns and their villages that were set aside for the Ephraimites within the inheritance of the Manassites. They did not dislodge the Canaanites living in Gezer. To this day, the Canaanites live among the people of Ephraim, but are required to do forced labor.
Okay,
Now, is that true today, or is this just biblical time?
biblical times.
Okay.
There is today nothing that we know of that's Canaanite.
Okay.
They're the Israelites and the Palestinians. I'm sure there's still some tribal connection, but it's kind of past. Okay, 17, we're getting more direction. You notice that all of this, the frame of reference is the Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to be east of the Jordan, west of the Jordan, or the sea, the Salt Sea. So they're trying to lay this land out around that. And what we do know is that eventually those tribes split into Israel, which is the northern kingdom, and Judah, which is the southern kingdom. So when we're looking at how these borders are set up, they don't even last through the Israelite time, because the northern kingdom was conquered fairly soon after it broke away. And even the Israelites couldn't agree. I mean, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, they did not agree on a lot of stuff. So, when we talk about the Jews, there are a lot of different Jews with a lot of different beliefs. If we look at it today, we've got the Orthodox, the Reformed, and the Conservatives. And then you've got that Hasidic Jews, which is a whole different group. I mean, apart. And they're the ones that the men wear those big furry hats and the long black coats. And I get a kick on Instagram. Occasionally they'll show a wedding. And they hear these guys are all out dancing on the floor with their hats, and they pick the groom up and carry him around, and it's even the Reformed Jews don't understand what Hasidic Jews are doing. you know, they're probably looking at it going, oh, jeez,
Yeah.
where do you get a hat like that? And those are expensive hats.
Oh,
So were the Samaritans a different people, or did they have some roots with the Israelites as well?
I think there was a connection.
That's what I always thought, but I
You know, when you
somehow they didn't get along.
well, and for example, here's what happens. Caleb said, "Whoever will take Kedesh and takes it, I'll give my daughter."
those
And-
poor girls.
I know.
Yeah, and Orthriel, son of Caz, Caleb's brother, took it. So Caleb gave him his daughter as a wife. Well, they were cousins.
Yeah.
But why would he do that anyway? Why wouldn't
They
he
had a
take
different culture.
it himself?
I don't know, he didn't want to get his hands dirty. If somebody else can do this job, I'll give you my daughter. Daughter,
So the different Jewish sects could be traced back to this time of Joshua
yes.
getting the orders to divide up.
Yeah. I mean, the Hasidic Jews may feel a close affinity to one of those 12 tribes.
Yeah, I bet.
And they say, you know, we're living out
Mhm.
the message of that tribe. Orthodox Jews, you know, they're claiming they're still following the Torah about food and all of that.
Huh.
You know, they have a set of plates for different things. I mean, they don't mix. And I told you about the guy that was a salesman, and I had gone out to lunch with him, and you know, I had a hamburger and a milkshake where you don't mix milk products and meat products. And it dawned on me when after the order came, I said, "Ron, I'm sorry. You're Jewish, and I'm kind of breaking the rule, and it was really inadvertent, and I apologize for that." He said, "Larry, there is a border down the center of this table. What you do on your side is your business, and what I do on my side is my business." I mean, he was able to. Now, he's calling on a lot of people who aren't Jews, who would probably do the same thing. Well, you know, rather than him trying to lecture me,
Right.
you know, I thought he'd take me to a restaurant where I couldn't mix.
Yeah.
But, you know, for him, it was clearly defined. And
But you showed respect by acknowledging.
Yeah.
yes, yeah, I mean, I was really
his-
embarrassed
Yeah.
that I had done something that really was inappropriate. But he said, you know, there's a border down the center of the table. We're in a little greasy spoon. And, you know, he said, your side is your business, my side is my business. And he said, please, don't let that give you indigestion. You know, let's just relax and enjoy the meal and have a chance to chat.
So why should you not, this is not in the Bible, I'm sure, why couldn't you have a milk product with a beef product with him?
I don't know, there's some kind of rule in the
The
Yeah.
dietary,
dietary
fine
rules.
print of the.
You know, I couldn't have had lobster tail. Because,
But who would want to?
Hmm?
But who would want to?
well, I would. But he was smart enough not to take me to a restaurant where I had to buy an expensive lobster tail. You know, those dietary rules, a lot of those harken all the way back to the 40 years in the desert. And a lot of those rules were made simply because of public health concerns,
I'm sure.
like not eating shellfish. You know, no shrimp, no lobster, no scallops. That'd be terrible.
Mayonnaise at room temperature gets bad after a while.
Yes, that-
Your sandwiches.
Yeah. It's like going on a picnic and somebody brings potato salad and it sits out in the park for 4 hours in the sun. You're running a big risk. So,
Yeah.
for the Jews, when they were on this journey,
Yeah.
you could take cattle and make beef sticks out of it, jerky, but you couldn't do that with lobster, scallops, shrimp. I mean, shrimp doesn't keep. So unless it's frozen, and they didn't have a chest or cooler on that trip. So, so many of those rules carry over. And today, a Reformed Jew doesn't necessarily keep kosher. But I told you, I think it's one of the Feast of the Booths or one of those. I worked with a guy for a while whose wife was Jewish. He wasn't, but his wife was Jewish. And he invited us over for dinner. And his wife was making a brisket. And she put it on the table and she went in the other room. And I said, isn't your wife joining us? And he says, no, this is, I think it was the Feast of the Booths, that we eat a brisket. But the wife who cooks it eats in another room. I mean, now, they were not Orthodox. So even as a Reformed Jew, there were some things they do. It's kind of like, as Episcopalians, there's some things we do, even though it's...
Nobody knows why.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt that when the cross comes down the aisle, we bow. And I do that at Emmanuel. If there's a cross or the acolytes bring in the candle lighter, we just bow. That's just part of the tradition I grew up with. And so I do that, and I don't care if anybody else does it or not.
Yeah.
And when I say the creed, the Nicene Creed, and the part where it says, I believe in the resurrection, the dead, I always cross myself. I don't cross myself any other time in the service. But when I joined the Episcopal Church, you always crossed yourself at that point. I still do it. There's no rule. It's just something that I do. And I do that when I worked with the Presbyterians and they said the Nicene Creed, when they got to that part, I crossed myself. No one ever questioned it. But, and so for the Jews, even though they're not keeping kosher, there are some things that they would do. And that's what we have with Protestant denominations today. Each one has a custom that they do. And what do we look to as the authority? I don't know. It's like women wearing the little doilies on their head. I mean,
That went up, but that was the gospel thing back in the day.
yeah. But, and now if some of the older women will still wear a little doily on their head.
Huh.
I mean, that's, and, that's fine. I don't care. Put a doily on your head. So, it's like the little skull cap that the Jews wear. When I've gone to some bar mitzvahs, they always have a bin,
Oh.
and they just have a bunch of yarmulkes in there. And, you pick up one and put it on. The kid who was one of the bar mitzvahs, the young kid was a Michigan fan. And so they had yarmulkes that were blue and gold, Michigan colors. And I looked around until I found one that was green and white. I put it on my head. Because they don't discriminate. So, where do those traditions start? I don't know. What do they mean? I don't know. It does something for the person. It's significant for the person. So,
And it changes with time. I remember when we go to church back in the early 60s, whatever, every lady there wore a hat. And not the doily, but some kind of a hat.
yes. Head covering.
Yeah. Did you ever do that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
She was older than you think.
Well, it's
That's your older sister. Huh?
Yeah.
That's right.
if if you look at how people dress in the 50s, 60s for church,
Uh-huh.
men would never think of showing up with a polo shirt.
Oh, no.
You always wore a suit and tie, didn't you?
Mhm.
I mean, that was just the way you dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, we've kind of drifted away from that. So,
That was something because growing up in the 50s and 60s and going to church, you went dressed up
Oh, yeah.
to everything. And then as I was away from church, different things, and got to going back, and the casualness, it took me a while to get used to
Yeah.
that because I was used to, I had to have the hose and the heels and the hat and
Mm-hmm.
clump around,
Mm-hmm.
so these traditions, they wax and wane. And when I was younger, I went to the Methodist church. I can't imagine showing up wearing blue jeans and
No.
I mean, even at high school age, Sunday best. My mom would say, "You got to wear your Sunday best." So we see these things change. Some of the reason we did them date back to old church times. And the same thing is true for the Jews. They just have more history on that than we do. So, well, are we at 16?
We went through 60.
Okay, I flipped the page and
Don't do that.
This was the allotment for the tribe of Manasseh as Joseph's firstborn, that is, from Machir, Manasseh's firstborn. Machir was the ancestor of the Gileadites, who had received Gilead and Bashan because of the Machirites were great soldiers. So this allotment was for the rest of the people of Manasseh, the clans of Abiezer, Helek, Azriel, Shechem, Hefer, and Shemida. These are the other male descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, by their clans.
let me interrupt for just a minute. Let me point out that we have the lot that fell to the people of Manasseh. But Joseph, or Joshua, lists out all the tribes that are part of that clan. So each of those tribes are going to get their own territory. And one of those tribes may say, we're a little more high church than the others. This is the way we're going to do it in our tribe. There is no really dictated uniformity.
Kind
So,
of like the Hatfields and McCoys and
yeah, I
North
mean,
America.
and we'll find out that sometimes they agreed and sometimes they didn't. Verse 3.
Okay. Now Zelophehad, son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons but only daughters, whose names were Mahlah, Noah, Haglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They went to Eleazar the priest, Joshua son of Nun, and the leaders and said, "The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among our brothers." So Joshua gave them an inheritance along with the brothers of their father, according to the Lord's command. Manasseh's share consisted of 10 tracts of land besides Gilead and Bashan east of the Jordan, because the daughters of the tribe of Manasseh received an inheritance among the sons. I'm sorry. I don't know how to turn it off.
Sure he did.
Number 6 is where I am.
Okay. East of the Jordan, because the daughters of the tribe of Manasseh received an inheritance among the sons. The land of Gilead belonged to the rest of the descendants of Manasseh.
Okay, let's, another pause. You hear what's just happened?
Yeah.
Daughters.
Women got rights.
Women had rights there. They got land.
Uh-huh.
And, that really is remarkable. I mean, that this is happening. And, they're being treated like their brothers. Now, whether they got the best land, I don't know, but at least they were identified and given something.
Yeah,
That is nice.
amazing.
The territory of Manasseh extended from Asher to Mikmethoth, east of Shechem. The boundary ran southward from there to include the people living in Tappuah. Manasseh had the land of Tappuah, but Tappuah itself on the boundary of Manasseh belonged to the Ephraimites. Then the boundary continued south to the Kanah ravine. There were towns belonging to Ephraim lying among the towns of Manasseh, but the boundary of Manasseh was the northern side of the ravine and ended at the sea. On the south, the land belonged to Ephraim, on the north to Manasseh. The territory of Manasseh reached the sea and bordered Asher on the north and Issachar on the east. Within Issachar and Asher, Manasseh also had Beth-shan, Ibleam, and the people of Dor, Endor, Tanakh, and Megiddo, together with their surrounding settlements. The third in the list is Naphoth. Yet the Manassites were not able to occupy these towns, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that region. However, when the Israelites grew stronger, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not drive them out completely. The people of Joseph said to Joshua, "Why have you given us only one allotment and one portion for an inheritance? We are a numerous people, and the Lord has blessed us abundantly." "If you are so numerous," Joshua answered, "and if the hill country of Ephraim is too small for you, go up into the forest and clear land for yourselves there in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaites." The people of Joseph replied, "The hill country is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites who live in the plain have iron chariots, both those in Beth-shan and its settlements and those in the valley of Jezreel." But Joshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh, "You are numerous and very powerful. You will have not only one allotment, but the forested hill country as well. Clear it, and its farthest limits will be yours. Though the Canaanites have iron chariots, and though they are strong, you can drive them out."
Okay. Let's jump right into 18.
The whole assembly of the Israelites gathered at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. The country was brought under their control, but there were still 7 Israelite tribes who had not yet received their inheritance. So Joshua said to the Israelites, "How long will you wait before you begin to take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Appoint 3 men from each tribe. I will send them out to make a survey of the land and to write a description of it according to the inheritance of each. Then they will return to me. You are to divide the land into 7 parts. Judah is to remain in its territory on the south, and the house of Joseph in its territory on the north. After you have written descriptions of the 7 parts of the land, bring them here to me, and I will cast lots for you in the presence of the Lord our God. The Levites, however, do not get a portion among you, because the priestly service of the Lord is their inheritance. and Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have already received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan. Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it to them. As the men started on their way to map out the land, Joshua instructed them, "Go and make a survey of the land and write a description of it. Then return to me, and I will cast lots for you here at Shiloh in the presence of the Lord." So the men left and went through the land. They wrote its description on a scroll, town by town, in 7 parts, and returned to Joshua in the camp at Shiloh. Joshua then cast lots for them in Shiloh in the presence of the Lord, and there he distributed the land to the Israelites according to their tribal divisions.
Let's do Benny.
Okay. The lot came up for the tribe of Benjamin, clan by clan. Their allotted territory lay between the tribes of Judah and Joseph. On the north side, their boundary began at the Jordan, passed the northern slope of Jericho, and headed west into the hill country, coming out of the desert of Beth Aven. From there, it crossed to the south slope of Luz, that is Bethel, and went down to Adaroth Adar on the hill south of Lower Beth Horon. From the hill facing Beth Horon on the south of the boundary, turned south along the western side and came out at Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, a town of the people of Judah. This was the western side. The southern side began at the outskirts of Kiriath Jearim on the west, and the boundary came out at the spring of the waters of Nephtoah. The boundary went down to the foot of the hill facing the valley of Ben Hinnom, north of the valley of Rephaim. It continued down the Hinnom Valley along the southern slope of the Jebusite city, and so to En-Rogel.
Let's pause there. We don't know where in the hell all this stuff is.
You know that one verse that said
But what she's calling hills, mine says mountains.
Yeah.
oh,
The one thing that I wanted to point out in 18 was right off the bat, it says, "Then the entire congregation of the people of Israel got together at Shiloh. They put up the tent of meeting."
Uh-huh.
That has been the first reference in a long time to them worshiping. It's the tent of meeting is where they gathered to meet with God. So, here we have them gathering, and it may be that the other tribes who had not been given any land are saying, we want to do this in a religious setting. We want to, right before God and everybody, we want to know who our property is. What do we get? And, verse 21 through 28, it just gives the cities of the tribe of the Benjamin clan.
Yeah.
I mean, we have no doubt that you could read those names.
Oh.
But I also have no doubt that none of us really care. We're just proud of your level of intelligence.
Yes, yes.
But we'll pick up with 19.
some people would probably be horrified because I have a Kansas accent, I'm sure.
You just
So-
got to go to those names
We
with
don't
confidence
have
like you do
accents.
yourself.
That's right. You just have to go on through.
All right, we'll see everyone next week.
Okay.